Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I always thought I'd meet my end on the battlefield. Not like this. Not surrounded by chaos, with the world falling apart and the skies streaked red from cities on fire. I'm Commander Mason Rourke of the 3rd Armored Battalion. Well, I used to be. After the last 24 hours, I don't know what I am anymore. Soldier, survivor, witness to the end. It started during a routine drill at Fort Barton, an old base tucked deep in the Midwest. Dusty fields, scattered pines, and silence that stretched for miles. That morning, we were doing standard combat readiness checks, engine tests, turret calibrations, reloading drills. My crew was sharp, as always. Sergeant Vega manned the main gun. Specialist Carter kept our systems humming. Corporal Lane was on comms, cracking jokes between updates. And me? I was perched in the commander's hatch of our M1A2 Abrams, watching the flat horizon, drinking burnt coffee from a chipped thermos. Then everything shifted. It started with the radio. Lane leaned over and said, "Sir, something's wrong. I'm picking up weird chatter, civilian bands, emergency frequencies. It's all over the place." At first, I thought it was a glitch. Radios bug out all the time during storms. But the sky was clear, and the static was different. Choppy, panicked voices layered over each other, calling out towns and roads. Screams, crashes, code words we hadn't heard since advanced threat drills. "Try HQ," I said. "See if Barton Command has anything." She did, and the signal came through loud and clear. That's when the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. "All units, be advised." The voice crackled, tense and urgent. "This is not a drill. Unknown biological threat spreading across multiple states. Cities compromised. Maintain lockdown until further notice. Do not engage civilians unless hostile. Repeat, do not..." The signal cut out. We just sat there for a second, staring at each other in disbelief. Vega laughed, nervous, sharp. "What is this, some messed up exercise?" "Doesn't feel like one," Carter said, already typing into his console, trying to pull anything he could from the digital chatter. I called over the rest of the company on secure lines. Most of them hadn't heard the alert yet, but within minutes, everyone was tuned in. Whispers spread about sick people attacking paramedics, full hospitals going dark, roadblocks overwhelmed by panicked crowds. The worst part? Every report ended the same way. Silence. Then came the sirens, base-wide, the kind that don't stop. An emergency lockdown hit Fort Barton. Gates sealed, lights dimmed. Command gave the order for all armored units to prepare for potential deployment. We were told to stay in our tanks. We weren't told why. That was the last order I got before the line went completely dead. We stayed put, half expecting a colonel or general to roll up and explain everything. But hours passed. By noon, the base was quiet, too quiet. No vehicles, no foot patrols, just wind rattling fences and the low mechanical hum of our Abrams. Then we saw the first smoke plume, thick, black, rising just beyond the tree line. "Something's burning," Vega said. "Way too close." I climbed back up to the hatch with my binoculars. What I saw made my stomach twist. A convoy of civilian cars had smashed through one of the service fences. They were burning. Some flipped over, others still idling with doors wide open. People ran from the tree line. At first, I thought they were injured. Then one of them dropped to all fours and charged, fast, wild, like a beast. He tackled a man in a flannel shirt and tore into him. I mean tore. The rest followed like a stampede. Some were limping, others sprinting. Their clothes were shredded, their eyes wide and unfocused. I lowered the binoculars. "It's not a riot," I muttered. "That's something else." Carter whispered, "Are those even people?" We sealed the tank immediately. Locked hatches, sealed vents, prepped ammo. We were in a fortress. Nothing could get in unless we opened the doors. That decision saved our lives. We didn't know it then, but Fort Barden had already fallen. We stayed in the tank for hours, listening. No word from command. No orders. Just the occasional scream carried by the wind and the crackle of static over the radio. We took shifts on watch. No one talked much. By late afternoon, the smoke from the tree line had spread. Fires jumped from the vehicles to the grass, and we watched it burn slowly toward the base perimeter. Still, no one came to put it out. That's when I realized no one was left to. We tried hailing any other unit, nothing. Lane flipped frequencies, tried civilian bands again. The news was chaos. Major cities overwhelmed. Emergency services gone. One phrase kept coming up. Fast infection. I didn't like the sound of that. Vega, ever the realist, finally asked, "Sir, should we leave the base?" I hesitated. Every rule I'd ever followed said to hold position and wait for command, but I'd seen enough battlefields to know when a place was already lost, and Fort Barden felt like a tomb. We waited until nightfall. I figured darkness would give us cover if we needed it. Around 8, we powered up the Abrams. Turret low, lights off. The engine was a low growl in the silence. We rolled slowly toward the eastern motor pool, hoping to find other survivors or at least some fuel. That's when we saw them. Dozens of figures standing near the refueling station. At first, I thought they were soldiers, but the longer we watched, the more wrong it felt. They moved strange, twitchy, like marionettes with broken strings. One turned. Its uniform was torn, soaked in something dark, and its face was wrong. Eyes pale, mouth slack, skin like wax stretched too thin. Lane whispered, "That's Sergeant Hall. I think that's Hall." Hall had been in Delta Platoon. A solid guy. Now he was shambling in circles, arms twitching at his sides, jaw working like it was chewing something that wasn't there. We backed away. Carter was about to suggest heading to the west gate when the turret camera caught sudden motion. Fast and erratic. One of them sprinted at full speed toward a nearby Humvee, slamming face first into the side panel. No hesitation, no pain, just blind aggression. Then the others turned, like they could smell us. "They know we're here," I said. "Back us out, slow." Vega reversed, and the figures started coming. Fast. Full sprint. Some were missing limbs. One still had a rifle slung across his back, dragging on the ground. They slammed into the tank. Scratching. Beating on the armor with fists and teeth. The sound was terrible, like a rainstorm made of bones and rage. Lane shouted. One of them just threw something at the hatch. "Keep driving," I yelled. "Do not stop." We crushed something under the treads and the tank lurched. A wet crunch. No one said anything. We powered through the main yard, rolling over torn-up vehicles and broken fences. The infected, if that's what they were, gave chase but couldn't keep up once we gained speed. The main gate had been ripped open, not unlocked, ripped. Vega muttered, "What could do that to steel?" We rolled out into the night. Once we were off the base, the world felt hollow. The roads were empty. No headlights, no taillights. Just darkness swallowing the highways. We kept the tank's interior dim, running low-beam vision to stay hidden. The last thing I wanted was to draw more attention. "We're running low on fuel," Carter warned. We've got maybe 60 miles left, give or take. It didn't give us much time. The Abrams is powerful, but it drinks fuel like it's water. I scanned our old route maps. There was a fuel depot 20 miles east, near the edge of a town called Harper's Creek. Small place. Not much more than a gas station, a diner, and a single blinking stoplight. But it had fuel tanks for emergency services. If they were still intact, it might keep us moving. We took the back roads. The farther we went, the more signs we saw that something had gone very wrong. A truck flipped on its side, the cab door torn off. A school bus half sunk in a ditch, windows shattered from the inside. A deer, what was left of it, strewn across the pavement like someone had just thrown it there. Around midnight, we reached Harper's Creek, or what used to be Harper's Creek. The town was dark, no lights, no movement. Power lines were down. One of the buildings still smoldered, sending faint trails of smoke into the sky. The only sound was the tank's idle hum and the wind. "Eyes open," I said. "This place feels wrong." We parked the Abrams just outside the fuel depot's fenced perimeter. Carter stayed behind to monitor the thermal cams while the rest of us scouted on foot. We didn't want to waste a drop of fuel moving the tank unless we had to. The fence was already torn open. I raised my sidearm. Lane had a flashlight, but we kept it low and narrow. The depot office had been ransacked, papers everywhere, shelves broken. No blood, though, just absence. We found the tanks out back, still sealed, still full. That was the first good news we'd had all day. "We can siphon some into the tank," Vega said. "Might take a while, but it'll buy us another 100 miles. We started transferring fuel using the manual pump system. The sound echoed too loud in the still night. That's when Lane noticed the door to the warehouse nearby was open. "Should be locked," she said quietly. We all turned. The door creaked as it swung, slow and lazy. Inside it was pitch black. I didn't want to check it, but I had to. Leaving something behind us, something unknown, was worse than facing it head-on. We stepped inside. It was cold. The air felt heavier, rows of shelves stretched toward the back, full of barrels and crates. Then we saw them. 3 figures slumped against the wall. At first, I thought they were sleeping. Lane whispered, "Are those workers?" I stepped closer, shining my flashlight just enough to see their faces. No. They weren't sleeping. Eyes glazed, mouths slack. Still. Then one of them twitched. I didn't wait. Back to the tank, now! We ran, boots pounding the floor, out into the open air. As we reached the fence line, we heard movement behind us. Fast, erratic. The screech of something not meant to exist. We climbed back into the Abrams and sealed the hatch just as something slammed against the side of the turret. Carter shouted from inside, "They're coming from the woods too, at least a dozen." "Power up main gun," I ordered. "Load canister shot." Loaded. I turned the turret and fired. The blast lit up the night. Dust, dirt, and debris flew in every direction. Figures scattered, some vanishing into the trees, others flung backward by the force. We didn't wait to confirm. Fuel loaded, we rolled out. Harper's Creek disappeared behind us. We drove through the early morning fog, every one of us silent. Harper's Creek had shaken us. They weren't just mindless. Some of them were quiet. Hiding, watching, waiting. That's not how this kind of thing is supposed to work. I kept checking the maps. There was a reinforced checkpoint on the state line, a bridge crossing over the Moraine River. If any military units were still out there, that's where they'd regroup, and maybe, just maybe, we'd find answers. The sun rose behind heavy clouds, barely lighting the world in gray. Around 0630 hours, we reached the ridge above the river. and saw the bridge. It was covered in abandoned vehicles, civilians and military. Doors left open. Some still had luggage strapped to the roof. Others had crashed into one another trying to flee. A few were burned out completely. No bodies, no signs of a fight, just gone. Lane stared through the scope. I'm not seeing anyone, no movement, no heat signatures. We rolled closer. The treads of the Abrams crushed glass and twisted metal as we pushed a path through. The river beneath was slow and wide, mist curling up from its surface like steam from a forgotten kettle. Halfway across the bridge, the tank came to a sudden stop. "Obstacle," Vega said, checking his monitor. "Looks like a fuel truck sideways across both lanes." I climbed up through the hatch and raised the periscope. Sure enough, a large tanker truck turned perpendicular, blocking the road ahead. No way around it, no space to pivot. We were stuck. "Let's clear it," I said, quick and quiet. We climbed out with weapons ready. I took point. The tanker looked empty, the cab door swinging in the wind. The keys were still in the ignition. Whoever had been driving had left in a hurry. There were deep scratches along the side of the trailer, like claws, not human ones. We moved to push the truck just enough to get the Abrams through. That's when we heard it. A hollow knocking sound. From inside the tanker's container. We froze. Another knock. Then scratching. I stepped back. Something's in there. Or someone, Carter said, might be trapped. We hesitated. The last time we tried to help someone, we got chased by a pack of those things. But leaving a survivor behind, I couldn't do that, not without checking. I motioned to Lane. "Cover me. Vega, open it slow." He unlatched the rear door. It creaked open. Silence. Then a figure stumbled out, arms raised to block the light. It was a girl. Late teens, maybe, dirty hoodie, blood on her hands but no bite marks we could see. She dropped to her knees, shaking. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, voice cracking. "I've been in there since last night." We surrounded her, weapons lowered but ready. "What's your name?" I asked. "Emma," she whispered. Carter scanned her quickly with the med kit. Heartbeat fast, eyes alert, no signs of infection. We let her in. Back inside the tank, she told us what happened. Her family tried to get out of the city, got caught in the rush. She ran, found the tanker truck abandoned, climbed in, and locked it from the inside. She hadn't eaten since noon the day before. "They were everywhere," she said. "They didn't make noise like normal people. Some crawled, some leaped, and some looked like they remembered who they were." I made my skin crawl. We gave her water and some of Carter's ration bar. She clung to it like it was gold. Once the road was clear, we pushed forward, but slowly now. We couldn't risk another surprise like that. If something had caught scent of her before, it might still be tracking. Lane broke the silence with a single quiet sentence. "This isn't just an outbreak anymore." I knew what she meant. This was something else. We kept rolling for miles, following the main highway north. The roads were still and stretched, every mile giving us more wreckage, more signs that the world had unraveled faster than any of us imagined. Carter tried the radio again. Still static. "Satcom's down too," he muttered, frustrated. "Like the whole grid's fried." Vega looked back at Emma, who sat quietly behind us, knees drawn to her chest. "What do we do if this is it?" he asked. "We keep going," I said flatly, "until we find a working base, or someone." We had roughly 40 miles left in the fuel tank, maybe less. That would get us into the edge of the mountains, remote country, but there were rumored to be bunkers and old missile sites there. One of them might still be operational. At 14:30, we passed what looked like a civilian checkpoint. Barricades, police cruisers, flashing lights long since drained, a hand-painted sign, "Turn back, infected ahead." I climbed up to scan the area. Something wasn't right. The cars had been shot through the windows. Gunfire, but from the inside out, like someone inside the barricade had lost it, or worse, turned. We pushed forward. As the sun dropped behind the trees, the shadows stretched longer. That's when the sky changed. A thin column of black smoke rose in the distance. "Campfire?" Lane asked. "No," I said, "too big." We headed toward it, hoping for signs of life, hoping for anything. What we found was an abandoned broadcast station, tucked in the valley beside the road. The front gate was open, barbed wire torn like someone had forced their way through. The smoke was coming from the roof. An old satellite dish had caught fire, likely from a surge. "Worth checking," I said. "If they were transmitting, they may have logs." We parked the tank just outside the gate and entered the building on foot. The air smelled of melted plastic and burned metal. The lights were flickering. Inside, we found broken chairs, a few streaks of dried blood, and a map of the state pinned to the wall, marked with red circles and times, a pattern, sightings maybe, or movements. In the back, there was a radio room, still partially powered by a backup generator. Carter flipped through the channels. "Wait," Lane whispered. "Go back." He dialed back slowly. Through the static, a voice, faint, cutting in and out, but real. "Repeat, safe zone in grid 22. Echo, repeat, fall back to 22 Echo." Then silence. We looked at the map. Grid? 22 Echo was a few hours north, mountain country near an old military outpost. We all stood in silence for a moment, trying to process what we just heard. It wasn't just a call. It was a plan. "We've got to move," I said. "That might be the only help left." But just as we turned to go, Emma froze. "I heard something," she whispered. We paused. Then came the sound, a distant tapping, soft, wet, like bare feet slapping tile. Then a hiss. We all turned. Down the hallway something was crawling, fast, low to the ground, skittering like an insect but shaped like a person. I fired. The hallway lit up, echoing with the blast of my rifle. It fell. But there were more. Too many. Back to the tank, now. We ran. Emma stumbled. Vega grabbed her arm and yanked her forward. Figures poured from the side hallway. Some ran upright, others scrambled on all fours. One of them had no eyes, just raw skin stretched across its face. We made it out, sealed the tank, and started the engine. One of the creatures slammed against the hull. "Crush it," Lane growled. I did. The Abrams rolled over it with a sickening crunch. We didn't stop, not until we were miles away. The voice on the radio hadn't returned, but that single message, that was enough. Someone was alive, and they were waiting for us. We pushed through the night towards a Grid 22 Echo. The terrain changed, winding mountain roads, tall pines pressing in on either side, sharp turns that felt tighter with every mile. Up here, the silence had weight. No birds, no wind, just the tank's engine and our breathing. Vega had stopped joking. Lane rarely looked away from the sensors. Carter kept checking Emma for signs of exposure, but she remained clear, just tired and quiet. At 3:40, the road dipped into a narrow valley and we hit fog again. Thick, unnatural. It swirled like something alive, curling against the viewports. Visibility dropped to less than 20 feet. I slowed the tank. Feels like a trap, Vega muttered. Could be, I agreed. But this is the grid, we're close. We moved ahead slowly, scanning for any movement. Then, out of nowhere, lights. 2 beacons flared in the mist, aimed skyward. Searchlights. Static and steady. Military, Lane said. Could be a signal. We followed the light beams and saw it. An old radar installation surrounded by high fences. The gates had been reinforced. Sandbags, tripwire, mounted cameras. Someone had been preparing. I reached for the comms mic. This is Delta 26, I said. We're survivors. Approaching from South Ridge, friendly armor. Requesting entry. No reply. We waited. Then, static. Delta 26, received, hold position. The gate opened slowly. We rolled in. Inside were 2 other vehicles, a Humvee and a transport truck. Both military issue, lights on, engines cold, but no people. I parked the tank and stepped out cautiously, rifle ready. Stay sharp, I ordered. Something's wrong. We moved into the main building. The entry doors had been braced from the inside, then smashed open, forcefully. We stepped over a broken sign that read, Signal Command Post 4C. The inside smelled of copper and oil. No bodies, no sounds. Just old blood and shattered equipment. Lane swept the hallway with her flashlight. Something came through here hard. We found the radio room. The broadcast terminal was still active, looping the last transmission every 30 minutes. A backup AI had been running it. Automated emergency protocol. Carter found a log file. Looks like they were tracking the infection's movement, he said. Tried to coordinate evacuations, but lost contact with Central Command 18 hours ago. Then what happened to them? Vega asked. Lane looked at the security monitors. One screen showed grainy footage of the perimeter from 6 hours earlier. The team here had been overwhelmed. Dozens of infected, rushing the gate. One of them moved differently, taller, faster, wearing part of a uniform. It directed the others. Watch them break through. It didn't charge in. It waited, almost like it was thinking. Then the feed cut out. None of us spoke. We sealed the room and decided to hold until daylight. Emma curled up in the corner and finally slept. The rest of us took turns on watch. Around 0600, as dawn crept over the horizon, Lane nudged me. "Commander," she whispered, "look." On the far monitor, a figure stood at the edge of the tree line. Alone, motionless. Then it raised its head and stared directly at the camera. Not at the building. It didn't move for hours. The figure just stood at the tree line, staring through the camera. The others woke up one by one, and when they saw the screen, none of them spoke. Even Vega. It looked human, but only from a distance. The limbs were just a little too long, the posture too still, like a puppet waiting for strings. I scanned the perimeter with binoculars. Nothing else was out there. Just the figure and the mist creeping through the trees. No movement, no noise. It just vanished. Lane rewound the footage. It didn't walk away. One frame it was there, the next it wasn't. "That's not possible," Carter muttered. "I don't think the rules we knew still apply," I said. We didn't waste time. The signal base was too exposed, and whatever that thing was, I didn't want to see it up close. We scavenged what we could, ammo, fuel, a few encrypted drives, and loaded up fast. I knew there was an old emergency bunker 20 miles deeper into the mountains. Supposedly decommissioned, but deep, reinforced. If anything was still holding out, it'd be there. The road narrowed, the fog thickened again. At one point, Carter adjusted the sensors and said, We're not alone. Movement? I asked. Yeah, behind us, on both sides. Shadows. But the radar's not picking them up right. I looked out the slit window. Shapes flickered between the trees. Dozens. Then gone. It wasn't an ambush. It was something worse. They were herding us. I floored it. The tank roared through the forest trail, trees whipping past, turret shaking with every bump. Then, without warning, the forest ended, and the road opened into a valley. There, built into the cliffside, was the old emergency bunker, hidden under moss and stone, just like I remembered from training drills a decade ago, still intact. We rolled up to the entrance and activated the keypad. It buzzed, then unlocked. Inside was dark, cold, silent. We parked the tank just inside the blast doors and sealed them behind us. The air was stale but breathable. Lights flickered on, running on backup power. It wasn't much, but it was better than open ground. We moved carefully, floor by floor. No signs of conflict, no infected, just dust and silence. We found a control room, half-powered, and got to work bringing systems back online. Carter managed to activate internal cameras and motion sensors. Lane found food stores still sealed. It was the safest we'd felt in a long time. Emma slept. Lane took inventory. Vega made a joke about turning the place into a new headquarters. We thought we'd made it. Then the alarm started. A single alert, low level, motion near the main blast door. I checked the screen. At first, nothing. Then, one by one, they appeared. Figures, just outside the outer blast gate, dozens, maybe more. And standing in the middle was the same thing from the trees. They were back. Dozens of them, maybe more. And leading them was the same figure from the woods, tall, unnatural, standing still as the others swayed, shuffled, twitched behind it. We watched from the bunker's security monitors, frozen. The cameras outside flickered every few seconds, like the power didn't want to stay on. But the image was clear enough. They weren't attacking. Not yet. They were waiting. This doesn't make sense, Lane whispered. Why not rush us? Why just stand there? Because it knows we're watching, I said. It wants us to see. See what? The lead figure tilted its head slightly, as if it heard us. Then, slowly, it pointed to the blast door. Nothing happened, but we all felt it, like something was pressing in from every side. Emma stood near the back of the room, pale and silent. She hadn't spoken since we entered the bunker. Then she said something. Low, soft, barely a whisper. He's calling them. I turned to her. Emma, what did you say? He's calling them, she repeated. He's in their heads. She looked up at me with eyes too wide, too knowing. He dreams through them. I knelt in front of her. Emma, how do you know that? She didn't answer. She just hugged herself and stared at the screen. Carter checked the security console. They're trying to breach the outer gate. It's holding for now. Arm the tank, I said. Get ready to roll. You want to take the fight to them? Vega asked. No, I said, already strapping my vest back on. We're not getting boxed in. We let them surround us. We're done. We punch through now, before they fully mobilize. What about the girl? Lane asked. I looked at Emma. She was already climbing into the back of the tank. Silent. Calm. She goes with us. We powered up the Abrams. The hum of the engine echoed through the concrete bunker like a war drum. Lights flickered, and for a moment, everything felt too quiet again. Then the blast door groaned. Sensors showed stress increasing on the outer gate. Claws, fists, something pounding from outside. Get ready, I said, 3, 2, 1, open it! The inner blast door lifted with a scream of steel, and we surged forward. The tank rolled into the open air and straight into the chaos. They rushed us, dozens of them. But this was our ground now. The cannon roared. Rounds burst through the crowd, sending bodies flying. Vega rotated the turret like he was born doing it. Lane fired from the hatch, clearing the flanks. Carter monitored sensors, calling out movement. We carved a path through the infected, north, toward the ridge. But the figure stayed still, watching. When the last of the immediate horde fell, I slowed the tank. Dust and ash filled the air. And still it stared. Then it lifted one hand and pointed, not at us, at the sky. We followed its gaze. Above, a black shape moved through the clouds. Massive, silent. Something airborne, but not like anything I'd seen. No wings, no engines, just floating. It vanished behind the mountain. The figure turned and walked into the trees. Gone. We didn't chase it. We made it to the ridge by 11:30 hours and found an old fire lookout tower still standing. From there, we saw what remained of the world below. Cities burning, highways clogged with abandoned cars, smoke rising in every direction. But we were still alive. For now. Emma sat beside me on the ledge, watching the sky. "What happens now?" she asked. I looked out over the ruins. We keep moving. We find others. And we hold the line. Because whatever was coming, whatever was already here, wasn't finished. And neither were we. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.